I really hope this doesn't become my magnum opus, but it might. You see, when I was making a video about the Legends units for Deathwatch that have been released recently, I realised I had a lot more to say about Legend units than those Legend units. So we'll be looking at Legends, what Legends are, what Legends mean, the ways you can get confused with Legends, why you should use Legends, and how great it is that Legends exist. In short, I care a lot about you and the little figures you play with. Hopefully you can tell how much I care because of the length of this video and how passionately I talk about some of these models. The models with Legends rules. These rules are Legends, which may garner comments from some people to say, Legends, doesn't count, can't use them, I'm out. Comments from people called John, maybe. But I'm going to explain Legends and the weird place they occupy in the rules, which is very interesting to know, especially if you don't like Legends. Then I'll get more into the opinion part, but you can and should use Legends units. In 8th edition, Games Workshop laid out the 3 ways to play. Open play, which didn't seem to even use points. Narrative play, which used power level for speed and was roughly equal points. That's just how power level was. One power was roughly 20 points, but it didn't matter about the weapon options you had. Narrative play in 9th edition became Crusade rules, and also in 8th edition and then 9th edition there was a 3rd way to play called matched play. This used the more granular points, so it had points for every single weapon, every single model had a specific points value, and it was intended to be a very fair game of 40k. Games Workshop then added an extra set of rules for tournaments, match play plus essentially. And that was called competitive play. This meant that there were 4 ways to play, but the match play and the competitive play got conflated as one, and Games Workshop still struggles to define them as separate, even though they want them to be separate. 10th edition's points are present, but they act more like the power level of 8th and 9th edition, so there's no granularity, something that has continued to upset a lot of people. 10th edition's approach is more casual than before. Crusade still exists as the narrative way to play in 10th edition, and for open play, that is something that occasionally gets referred to in the Games Workshop's Warhammer Plus battle reports, where they say, oh yeah, we're doing this bunker mission from the White Dwarf, that's an open play game, or this Battle for Macragge reenactment, which doesn't have equal sides, that falls under open play for them, even though it is a mission recreating a narrative. Tournament play is tournament play. Those are the games you play at tournaments. The games you play one-off with people at a gaming club or with friends are now defined badly by Games Workshop as casual matched play, intended to be equal and balanced, using all of the rules but not using the preset tournament mission sets or the tournament terrain layout. Those are the extra rules in the tournament companion. Legends can be used in these casual competitive games, but not in competitive tournament games. Oh, and Games Workshop sometimes calls this organised play. Why not have more confusing terms? And you may see that Games Workshop's upcoming tournaments say matched play on the banner. But then in the tournament pack, exclude Legends rules as a place to draw armies from. But oddly, not any Legends rules found in White Dwarf magazines. It is no wonder that people are confused by Games Workshop's intentions and have assumed that any game using equal points, but not Crusade, not making up your own mission, just a regular equal points 40k game is termed a competitive game, and then people assume that you can't use Legends rules in them. You can. Goonhammer's tabletop app calls everything match play, even the Crusade mission games, presumably because points are equally matched, not because it's meant to be played under tournament restrictions. At least when Games Workshop is talking about these different terms, they specify club games outside of tournament events as a place you can use Legends. And you don't need your opponent's prior permission to use Legends units in your army. But in 8th edition, that was an agreed upon rule. You can use Legends units, but only with explicit prior consent. So you'd have to build like 2 lists, one of them with Legends units and one of them with like proxies of those Legends units. Now you don't. You just use the Legend units. Nowhere is there a rule to be found that you need to have someone's permission to use certain units. Now you don't need their permission any more than you need their permission to run Genestealer Cult, knowing they have never played Genestealer Cult before, or Imperial Knights. Unless you are at a tournament event which has prohibited their use in the accompanying tournament pack, you can use units from the Legends PDF documents available for free on the Games Workshop downloads page. It is quite absurd that in this day and age, Games Workshop charges money just to have access to their rules, but these rules at least are free. Think of it this way. If you're refusing the free Legends PDF rules and only going by the Codex rules to get suitable proxies for your units, you are adding a paywall to play with those units. You may want to add Imperial Agent units to your army. You may want a Rogue Trader entourage. How about Janus Drake instead, whose rules are free? And you also, instead of a Dreadnought, maybe have Inquisitor Karamazov. He has a very cool melter cannon. But what is especially annoying about 10th edition is Games Workshop doesn't have a clear definition of the ways to play in the 10th edition rulebook, so players have kept using 8th edition terminology that Games Workshop has moved away from but never really properly redefined. There is no "here are the conditions for using Legends" document. But the reason it doesn't have a specification document is because, like all the units in your Codex and the Imperial Armour PDF, they are units you can include in your army. You can always play them unless a tournament pack says you can't. If they weren't normally allowed, then tournaments would not have to specify that they are not allowed at their events. In Games Workshop's rulebooks, if units aren't allowed, like the limitations on the Brood Brothers Auxilia, it will say so. That is how Games Workshop operates. But unsure if this is okay, or on the side of not allowed, is the common response players have to Legends. I am here to tell you that you can play with Legends units. There are rules for your Duradai or Dreadnoughts in 40k. Use them! Games Workshop rules writers want you to use them outside of tournaments, and I want you to use them as well. It makes me sad that people are told by others that they can't use their toys, when those toys have official rules in 40k for this edition, specially written. Not necessarily well written, but they are written. I am not in the minority of players on this, but I am in the minority of YouTubers who make videos about the tabletop game. The online discourse is very tournament focused because tournament players talk a lot more online. You tend not to do that so much if you play 40k once every 2 months, but I would desperately love to see your comments in the comment section for comments. And if you know a faction really well enough to make good YouTube videos about that faction, you probably also go to tournaments, and so you think about your last tournament and your next tournament and the tournament rules and have those restrictions in mind. And you cater to an audience of terminally online tournament players because online, there are lots of them. I can enjoy tournaments, but I find them needlessly intense, and I want to accommodate a more casual audience who wants to have fun with their little models. All of them. Look how cool this Sisters of Battle heroine is. I would love for you to play with her in your 40k games using these rules that the Games Workshop staff have written for her. Otherwise, my analysis of her rules would just be, yeah, that makes an okay stand-in as a canoness. That would be about it. But what are the good reasons for not including Legends units in your army lists? Well, you can't use them in most tournaments. The default for one-day tournaments is 3 games of 2,000 points. Army lists can't include Legends units. So if you are a touring troubadour tournament troupe traveling tournament to tournament, your games will be practice games for those tournaments, not done for pure fun using all of your models. And that can suck. Then it does feel like if a unit is in Legends, it is gone for you forever. Tantalizingly there, but not actually available to you. When I'm playing 40k and running a weird list or testing a competitive list, I can feel the work mindset knowing I am doing it for a video. So I have to keep it tangentially related to what I love playing. And sometimes I play Chaos Space Marines. Not for a video, but because I can relax and have fun knowing no one expects me to answer a question on the best way to play the Deceptors detachment using only cultists. So other than the person who only plays 40k on tournaments, or who has to constantly prep for tournaments. Everyone else can use Legends rules. They are official. They are real. These rules exist. If you close your eyes and turn your head away, then they are still there. And I think they are just as balanced as any other unit in 40k. Take that as you will. But what if you lose a game against an opponent that has a good Legends unit? You might get annoyed that you only lost because they had a unit that didn't have main codex rules that you could easily see. But that could be the same as anything else. Oh, I only lost because Metamorphs are OP. I only lost because the Palatine plus Repentia is OP. Or because Catan is still OP. But when beaten by them, you can say, they are OP. Where can I buy one? And the answer will be Games Workshop. That's where you get your Repentia, that's where you get your Metamorphs, as well as my affiliates linked in the description that give you Games Workshop models but without the Games Workshop prices. If there is one available for your country, I recommend them. So far I've only heard good things back when people have used my links, and using those links help my channel to keep functioning. My channel that isn't just pure tournament focus. So you played against Legends, and your opponent has a super cool unit that you can't match. This is part of Games Workshop's official reason why Legend units aren't allowed in tournaments. They are explicitly intended to be used at your local gaming club, just not Games Workshop's own tournaments. They are different places, and Games Workshop acknowledges this. Their tournament companions are for tournaments. Only tournaments. So Games Workshop's like, oh no, no Legends units here, because if a list does really well, Games Workshop no longer sells those models. They want to sell models so that when there's tournament buzz about Inquisitor Karamazov and his massive melter doing great, no. No, he didn't. Not allowed. Crusaders? Nope. Can't get them. Can't have them in a tournament. But a Dialogus with a new 4+ invulnerable save being used to complete actions? Yep, that's fine. Games Workshop website right here. Buy her right now, right today. Today, get the Dialogus. Get it today. Buy it. Buy the model that did good in tournaments. Win tournaments with the Games Workshop model that you buy. That is why Games Workshop doesn't let you have Legends units in tournaments, and so everyone else follows suit, as if that is the official way to do tournaments. I gave a hypothetical example of a Legend unit being good, but Legends are rarely strong and are often overcosted. Vanguard veterans on foot cost 15 points more than their faster Codex jump pack variant. Venerable Dreadnoughts are the same profile as a Dreadnought, same ability, but they have an autocannon option. It shouldn't cost 30 points more for the privilege. Legends units can feel like get you by rules, and the ones that are strong in Legends were strong in the 10th edition Index and then got moved to Legends. The Adeptus Sororitas Crusaders are a good example. They were used a lot in the Index and then they got stronger in Legends. They didn't break the game by existing. Their strength was in being cheap. Like what, everyone was fine with them 5 minutes ago, but now they're suddenly not? Are Grot tanks suddenly OP where before they were just a bit of fun? And it being a fine addition to the edition, but then suddenly not okay now? Well, I feel the same way about wargear disappearing. Why could my Terminator Captain have lightning claws in the Index, but now they can't? My Space Marine Captain has a combi melter, but now they can't. But the points are exactly the same. My Chaos Cultists forgot how to use autoguns and heavy stubbers, but Death Guard Cultists haven't yet. Instead, the Death Guard forgot how to ride bikes and use jump packs. Wargear changes are a different thing though, something we can choose to fix ourselves, because Legends are official 40k rules, with official points. But less care is taken on them to try and keep balance. Their points and rules aren't actively balanced. This is a Games Workshop term, and it means that their rules are not updated every 3 months in line with everything else. Maybe AdMech players can relate to that. And so that is why the Venerable Dreadnought and the Vanguard Veterans are too highly costed. Their points values match their value at the start of the edition, but their similar comrades have been reduced in cost for balance, the Legends have not. And that sucks. But what are you going to do? Agree to use the points matching their near identical Codex variant? Do that for fun because you want to use your Sword and Shield Deathwatch veterans on foot in a Space Marine army with Space Marine rules that they wouldn't have access to as agents of the Imperium because of keywords. I mean, that's an option. But we could go even further into homebrew territory, making your own suitable rules because Games Workshop has not and doesn't care about Celestians. And I don't mean Celestian Sacrosancts, but still puts info about them in every single Battle Sisters box, and I did! I made my own rules for Celestians, which I am updating for the Codex. But Legends exist closer to the official rules than Homebrew, because every gaming group could make their own Gabriel Angelus instead of just using a Terminator Captain rule, and each group would have different rules. Legends are the official Games Workshop rules intended for unified play everywhere. Every gaming group gets the same set of rules and points. These are just in a different document to the Codex. We are used to that already in 10th edition, as points come out in a separate document and supersede the Codex points. Balance updates to rules are another document and supersede the Codex rules, and the rules commentary supersedes the rules however you play. Legend supersedes the units in the Codex are your only units, with the exception of some tournaments. Alright, there's a lot more reading here and looking into the past, so I'm going to need my glasses on. I don't like the alternative suggestions we got for some units like Gabriel Angelos and the Celestians. Games Workshop had done a document that shows what you should use other units as. If you have Celestians with guns, use Battle Sister rules instead. But that is another solution. The old solution to units disappearing. Like I had to do in, say, 5th edition. Just use the unit as something else, something similar. That is the bit I don't like. That is where I want Legends. That is why Legends as a concept is good. But there's something extra. Imperial Armour. These are units made by Forge World, Games Workshop's company within a company. Like Legends, they come in a separate document, yet they are considered viable for tournament match play, while Legends are just allowed in regular match play, where you randomly draw missions from the Pariah Nexus mission deck. There are some Imperial Armour units that are basically the same as their Codex version, but cheaper. The Earthshaker Carriage Battery is 120 points and has an Earthshaker cannon. The Guard Basilisk is 140 points and has an Earthshaker cannon. It's the same gun, but on wheels instead of a tank chassis. Why is the Carriage tournament legal, while the near-identical Earthshaker platform is not? And so the confusion comes in regarding Games Workshop's intention. They have made the rules and given them to us, but at Games Workshop events that are streamed and pushed as the way all the cool kids play, no Legends. I agree that it is sending mixed signals at best, like sending an Arbiter to capture a heretic alive, but handing them a sniper rifle instead of a stun baton. Because Games Workshop doesn't want to advertise models they don't sell anymore, that other places make similar versions of. And other tournament events tend to copy what Games Workshop does because that is easier than making your own tournament pack. 3 2,000-point games, each in 2 hours and 45 minutes, with no Legends allowed becomes the norm. Even if a lot of casual players can't match that pace. Because Games Workshop wants to have flashy events showing off their current range of moneymakers. And all these tournament-winning units are available to buy from Games Workshop today. But you know, if you did want to buy them, how about getting them cheaper through my affiliate links in the description? It is cheaper than Games Workshop, and it does help out my Legends-loving channel. Because Games Workshop doesn't sell Legends models anymore, or because they were part of a limited run, just for that extra fear of missing out, the Legends units are not in the Codex, which is Games Workshop's on-shelf faction advert. It's not just there for rules, it's not just there for lore, it's certainly not there for points. It is Games Workshop's advert to you. That is why these playable units don't appear in their Codex. Not that only Codex units can be used, but because Games Workshop doesn't sell those models anymore. But people were getting very annoyed that their units were disappearing. Like, oh yeah, you can use this model, now you just can't. So Legends is the middle ground. There are rules for them, but not in the Codex. The models aren't sold anymore, but if you have the models already, you can keep using them in 40k. While there has never been a perfect edition of 40k, there were good and bad of all the editions. Editions before 8th edition had a lot of fun rules, but your units would disappear forever. It happened to the Zotes for the Tyranids after 2nd edition. The Zote didn't get a new model in 3rd edition, while units like the Zoanthrope did. I like this big old Zoanthrope and think it makes a perfect Neurotyrant. It happened to the Palatine for the Battle Sisters. They're in the Witch Hunters Codex, gone in 5th edition. So I had to use mine as a Canoness or under the Imagifier rules. No, there were no rules for the Palatine. The Dark Eldar Dracons and Trueborn, they had rules and then they were gone. The same for a lot of special characters of the past. The principle of, if the models aren't sold, there are no rules for them, is the principle we see across 40k's past. But this is where we see a mistake being made by a lot of players in their thought process on what legends are. Legends are not purgatory. They are not rules for now, but they're on death row facing final execution, though that is how a lot of people see it. And they take the same view of the Tactical Squad and the Devastator Squad that are in the Space Marine Codex. Like, oh, they're here in the Codex, but they're gonna disappear. I take a different view entirely. I take the approach of, they are still alive! And we didn't used to have this. And being in Legends isn't an indicator that you'll be gone in the next edition. The Orc Gretchen big guns from 2nd edition, like a catapult, are still there in Legends. They're still going. And it isn't one way, because I can think of at least one example of units that were in Legends coming out of Legends and going back into the Codex, because it just happened. Esperen Locano was in Imperial Agents Legends at the start of the edition, and is now in the Codex Imperial Agents, no longer has the Epic Hero keyword. He is a navigator. You can now have multiple. So when some people were enthusing about this unit, like, wow, now all Imperial armies can have a unit that denies enemy deep strike. You already could. But now you can in Games Workshop run tournament events too. And I swear this would not be as contentious if Games Workshop updated their app to show Legends. Ideally like how Warpedia does it, with the toggle at the top that you can turn off. Then you could see the units normally available and see which are restricted from entering Games Workshop tournaments. Just a button to enter. Tournament mode. It sounds cool, so why not do it? Having the units on the app would make it better. I know it would work better because it works like that in Age of Sigmar. While 40k models are getting blander, Age of Sigmar ones are getting cooler. And while the 40k app doesn't have Legends, the Age of Sigmar app does. But you don't have a toggle to turn it off. Now I guess that's better than 40k as it sets the casual tone as coming first. But if you are going to my first tournament, you might get a shock that some of your army isn't allowed. But at least these people are playing with their Legends units in Age of Sigmar, because now younger people especially know that that is an option. Support for 40k has generational problems. Young people in whatever sort of Gen Z gets called, they're online a lot, but it's on apps, not on websites. The phone is the internet device of choice. So if you're on that part of my audience demographic, I would be curious to learn if you ever knew about these Legends rules even existing. Millennials are also perpetually online. That is my generation, I think. So it may come as a shock to you to know that those damned millennials who ruin everything are in their 30s. Don't worry, every generation is accused of being the one that ruined everything, while also being incredibly lazy. I find that often I will think, oh, online banking. I don't want to use an app for that. I'll go home and do the same thing on a computer. It just feels more right. So millennials use websites more than apps, so are more likely to be able to find the Legends documents and know about it. This document, and their points in a separate document. If you want to be more weird, Imperial Armour units that are not in the Codex and have their own PDF are in the Games Workshop 40k app. You see the problem. Games Workshop makes it hard to find and use these rules, so players think it is implicit that you shouldn't use them, even when they have been explicitly told that you should. Official rules. I would like the 40k community to be as proactive and positive about Legends as the Warhammer The Old World players. When the old world was released, Games Workshop said, okay, these are the factions that won't be getting support or updates. These are legacy rules. It includes Dark Elves, Skaven, and my lovely vampire counts. Collectively, the old world player base said, you're wrong, Games Workshop. These are mainstream rules. We will not only be using them in our casual games, we will be using them at tournaments. We don't care that you don't sell them anymore. How dare you say these armies and units are less valid than others after you've made rules for them? And the old world has thrived more than expected because of that attitude. Have I been able to get through to you about Legends, or is it just this meme? Games Workshop has written rules for you to use these units. Yep. Games Workshop has put out statements saying that you can use these rules outside of their tournament events and even use them in some tournaments not run by Games Workshop. Yep. So Legends are rules from Games Workshop for you to use in your 40k games at gaming clubs. Makes sense to me. So will you be using Legend rules? Officially you can't use Legends units outside of your narrative games. You know, sometimes I could cry. So there's the full meme that you can use on people on Twitter or Facebook or wherever lets you have images. Discord. I also have a Discord. You can join my Discord and occasionally use that meme when appropriate. I think it would also be a good idea to write to Games Workshop at Games Workshop Group PLC, Willow Road, Lenton, Nottingham, NG72WS. They take more notice of letters than to easily deleted emails or messages on social media. Tell Games Workshop that they should balance the points of Legends units to encourage their use and maintain long-term value in their products as gaming pieces. And it would be nice if they updated the Deathwatch cards to have the correct chainsword, the fist, and the combat weapons. But updating the points would be great. Then, put the points on the same PDF document as the Imperial Armour and Codex units, so it looks official, so players will know that these are units that exist. If they want to leave it in the same place in a separate document, Games Workshop should have a statement at the top of that Legends document explaining what they are and where you can use them. Everywhere, except for Games Workshop run tournaments that explicitly ban them. If the Legends points move onto the main field manual document, put the statement at the top of that document. I've got my letter written and I'm sending it off to them. If it would cost too much for you to send a letter internationally, the FAQ email address linked in the description may be the second best idea. If we ask the question frequently enough, it becomes a frequently asked question. I make videos about using units in 40k, including Legends units in your games. My darlings and viewers, we are legendary.